Today we are going to study on the mechanics of cutting. In the previous class, we studied the cutting tools and cutting workpiece. What are the cutting fluids which are used? What are the properties of different cutting fluids which are used? How the cutting process is initiated? And then we went into the parts of tools and parts of cutting nomenclatures or symbols. So I hope you guys have seen the videos which I've shared for the supplementary slides in the previous lecture. So today we will continue from the parts of a cutting tool and how cutting forces and cutting ratios and etc. are calculated. So before we start, once again, like every class, I will start with a video so that you guys can further better visualize the process. So if you guys want to know what are involved, what forces are involved in a cutting process, then go through this link and video and just have a look. Okay, here you can see basically that once the tool touches the workpiece, it touches the workpiece at a certain depth. Okay, this certain depth is called depth of cut, DOC, depth of cut. And when the tool approaches and it removes the material at a certain depth, it produces chip also having certain thickness. So the ratio of this depth of cut to the thickness of the chip is called uh, cutting ratio. Okay, so during machining, the tool exerts a compressive force onto the workpiece. So we can see that the compressive force is acting, and due to compressive force, some shear forces are generated, and the chips comes out due to the shearing mechanism or the due to the shearing force. Okay, so here we have got the workpiece, we have got this tool, and then this is the nose end of the tool. This nose end is basically producing the cutting process. Then what happens is that this nose is at a certain depth from the surface of the workpiece. So this is cutting depth, and then as it is moving, a continuous chip is produced which is curling down. Okay, so if you can see, the chip is produced, this is called chip, and as it moves up, it moves through this tool chip what you call offset, and this chip offset is basically due to the tool geometry. So the tool is basically shaped like this so that the chips are going to move in this direction and curl up. Okay, so just see how the tool is curling sorry, the chips are curling up. Okay, the chips are curling. So the tool, the workpiece, the chip, the tool face, then this is now the inside area of the chip is shiny and the outside area of the chip is rough, because inside area, if you can see, it is stretched. Anything stretched is more shiny, and inside area is basically more of a curled, or it has compressed inside, so that is kind of rough surface. So inside area is the rough surface. Then the portion of the tool which touches, which actually is near or parallel, almost parallel to the tool face and the workpiece. So this tool face is called flank. Okay, so this is my workpiece, this is my tool, and this tool is doing the cutting operation. So as it is moving, there is some distance between the workpiece and the tool. Okay, this distance is called clearance. Okay, and the angle from here to here is called clearance angle or relief angle, and this face is called flank. This part of the face of the tool which is rubbing almost rubbing against the workpiece is called flank. This tool makes an angle with the workpiece, and that is called relief angle or clearance angle, because there is some clearance between the tool and the workpiece. So this angle is called the relief angle or the clearance angle. So now it is making, now as the tool is moving along the workpiece, okay, what is happening is that the chips are produced. So this chip is produced at a certain angle. Okay, so as you can see, the chip is produced at a certain angle, and the angle between the workpiece and the chip is called shear angle. Okay, so this chip has a shear angle with the workpiece, and this tool has a clearance angle or relief angle with the workpiece. This is the workpiece, this is the tool. When the tool is touching and doing the cutting operation, the angle from here to here, this angle is relief angle or clearance angle. And as the tool is moving, the chips are produced. So the chip is produced at an angle called shear angle, the angle between the workpiece and the tool, and the chip. Workpiece and the chip is basically shear angle. So here also, once again, you can visualize this is the relief angle and this is the shear angle between the chip and the workpiece. And the angle between the tool rank, okay, and the perpendicular workpiece perpendicular distance is alpha, that we will discuss later on. So this is a single point cutting tool. This is the cutting edge. This is the workpiece. It is moving in this direction to produce chips. Okay. So this is how chips are produced. You can see the chips are curling up. This is a turning operation. And in turning operation, as you can see that the chips are turning. And due to this production of chips, cutting force is generated. Okay. So there are three forces which are generated, one in the y direction, one in the x direction, y direction, and z direction. And the resultant is the square summation of squares under root of these forces. So let's take a look in detail about these things in our slides. So I just want you guys to see microscopically how the shearing happens. I told you guys that as the tool moves forward, so this is my workpiece, okay, and this is my tool, okay. So as the workpiece is cut, okay, then chips are produced, okay, chips are produced. These chips are basically sheared material. The material is sheared in layers, okay. The material shears in layers. Shearing mechanism is when parallel forces are stretching something, okay. So if you see or visualize shearing process microscopically, then you will imagine you can see how the shearing process occurs. This is microscopically how the shear planes are produced. These are shear planes, okay. These are shear planes. So this is the tool moving downwards. You can see this is the tool. This tool is moving downwards, and now you can see this is the chip which is produced. This chip is produced with shear angles. You can see shear angles or shear planes are produced. Okay, parallel shear planes. You can see 1 plane, 2 plane, 3 plane, 4 plane, something like that. This is the workpiece. So this is, if you can see in microscope, this is how it looks. So later on, you can go through this video. So this was all about visualizing how the chip is produced and visualizing how shear planes are produced. Now that we know how chips are produced and now we know that how shear planes are produced, let's proceed to what are these angles. So as I said earlier, before we move, cutting tool is made of material that is harder than the workpiece. Obviously, if my workpiece is harder and my cutting tool is softer, then the cutting tool will break. If my workpiece is softer, my cutting tool is harder, then only it can cut. Okay, so that's very common sense. So cutting tool is made of material that is harder than the workpiece. That's okay. A rake face directs the flow of chips oriented at a rake angle alpha. Now this part is called rake face. Okay, so if you see this in 3 dimensions, then this part of the tool is rake face. Okay, this part is rake face, and this rake face, the chip is moving on the rake face. Okay, so the rake face help the movement of chips to go outside. I want to remove material, I want to generate chips, I want to remove the chips also. To remove the chips, the rake phase helps in the flow direction. So the flow is there, flow direction and removal of chips outside the tool. Okay, so that is the function of rake phase. Now this rake phase has an angle, it has an angle perpendicular to the workpiece. Okay, so this is my workpiece. Okay, and this is 90-degree angle of workpiece. Okay, now if my tool is like this, okay, then the angle from 90 degree to the rake face is called alpha. Okay, and this is called rake angle. That is very, very important in cutting operations. Rake angle. This angle can be positive and this angle can be negative. How it can be negative? If my tool is something like this. Okay, so it makes from the workpiece, it makes a negative rake angle. This is negative rake angle. This is positive rake angle. Both have their own and separate applications. Okay, so rake angle positive, rake angle negative. Now flank, as we saw, flank is the lower portion. Okay, so the lower surface, if I visualize it in 3 dimension, then the lower portion is the flank. And there is some clearance between the flank and the workpiece. This is called clearance angle. Okay, or here also this one is clearance angle. Or another name is relief angle. So now we have 2 angles. Number 1, rake angle. Number 2, clearance angle. So let's move to the next slide. So when we talk about turning operation means that one of the workpiece is turning and my tool is moving with a certain speed to remove the material or chipping. Then in turning operation, the cutting is done, relative motion is required. Okay, so one motion is this one and another motion is this one of the tool. Primary motion is the cutting speed. So this cutting speed, the tool rotation is called the primary motion, and the secondary motion is the feed, so that this tool is moving. So if I can draw this using pen, okay, so this workpiece is moving in clockwise or anti-clockwise direction. This is cutting speed and this is primary motion. Okay, and my tool, this is my tool, this tool is moving inside. Okay, going in this direction. Okay, it is not moving in this direction, it has a depth of cut of this direction, it is moving in this direction. This is the DOC, depth of cut, and its speed is called feed, FWD. So the tool is moving in this direction, and this is called secondary motion, denoted by feed F. So we have cutting speed denoted by small v, and we have feed, which is the tool speed, which is denoted by small f. The remaining dimension of the cut is called depth of cut, d. And then we have another dimension called d, which is the depth of cut. Now the material removal rate, how much material I am removing per unit time, is denoted by material removal rate, MRR. MRR is equals to material removal rate. How much material I am removing in 1 second. Okay, this is material removal rate. Removal rate. This formula is very simple. RMR, material removal rate, is equals to velocity of the workpiece multiplied by the velocity of the cutting tool multiplied by the depth of cut, d. And the unit is, remember to put the unit millimeter cube per second. So how much volume I am removing in 1 second. So this is cutting condition speed. Now in turning, we use cylindrical shape. That's very easy. Okay. Speed motion is the rotary work part. Okay. Feed motion is the cutting tool. That is okay. In drilling, we create a round hole, right? Now in drilling, the drill bit motion is feed motion is the tool. Okay. So tool is moving in this direction. Okay. So this is feed, and motion is the rotating tool. So the tool is moving in the rotary direction. So this is the speed. Primary motion, this is primary, and this is secondary. Similarly, in turning, workpiece is moving, so workpiece is primary, rotating, and cutting tool is giving the feed, so it is secondary motion. Let's move to milling. So in milling, the workpiece is stationary. The tool multiple edge point cutting tool is present. You can see it has multiple edges, and the tool rotates also, and it moves also. So the rotate speed motion is the primary motion, the rotation. Okay, this is will be denoted by cutting speed V, and then it is moving in X or Y direction. Sorry, X or X direction. So this is with respect to feed. This is feed F. Now we have got two types of milling. One is peripheral milling, and number two is face milling. So in peripheral milling, you can see the rotation axis is parallel to the workpiece axis. Okay, and here you can see it is perpendicular to the workpiece axis, if I'm not mistaken. So let me check again. What's not here? Yeah. So feed motion workpiece direction perpendicular to tool axis. Okay, so this is basic form of milling, peripheral and face milling that we discussed already. So remember, you should know that for turning, okay, what is the primary motion and what is the secondary motion. Primary motion is the cutting speed, and secondary motion is the feed. Similarly, for drilling, the tool is rotating. Okay, so in drilling, the tool is rotating and it is moving downwards also. So moving downwards is the feed, and rotating is the speed. So remember these concepts. Now, when we talk about machining operation, let's say I want to remove some material from calculator. There are two ways. Either I can quickly remove a lot of material, or I can slowly remove small amount of material. Both of them are going to give different types of surface finish. So the surface finish is basically how rough my surface is. If my surface is very rough, it means surface finish bad. Bad. Okay, not good. And if my surface finish is very smooth, okay, this is good surface finish. Now, if I'm going to quickly remove material from a workpiece, then it is going to produce bad surface finish, and that is called roughening or roughing process. ROUGHING. So this is roughing process. Okay, in this I can remove large amount of material. I can remove large amount of material. But when I talk about finishing operation, I will do slowly and smoothly. Then the material remove is small amount of material. Small amount of material is removed. Now what is the cutting? So this is the difference. Another thing is that the feed, the tool moves is feed, right? So I want to quickly remove the material, means the feed of the tool should be very high or very fast. So the speed of the cutting is very high, and the feed depth of the cut or depth of the cutting is also very high. So DOC is very high and the feed is very high. Okay, and for a good surface finish, the DOC is small and the feed is also small. Only then I can produce good surface finish. So these are two cutting conditions. So I can ask you guys, what are the conditions in which rough surface and smooth surfaces form? Okay. So in production, several roughing cuts are usually taken on part, followed by one or two finishing cuts. So usually first I quickly remove lots of material, and then in the last step, I will do finishing operation slowly. Roughing removes large amount of material, okay, creates shape close to the desired geometry. It is done at high speed, high depth, can be done at low speeds also if the depth is very, very high. Finishing is always done at very low feed and depth and high cutting speed. The reason why the cutting speed is high is because I want to quickly finish my surface. So the cutting speed is high, but the feed is slowly, slowly, slowly. Now let's move to the dependent variables in cutting operations. Variables, important variables. Important variables. Whenever you are doing, you are cutting something, whenever you are performing cutting operation, then in that cutting efficiency, the amount of cutting, the quality of cutting depends on a lot of factors. These factors are described in book chapter paragraph number 1. Okay. In order to appreciate the content, the factors that influence the cutting process are: number 1, tool material and coatings, tool shape, surface finish, sharpness of the tool, workpiece, what is the type of workpiece material, what is the condition of the workpiece material, then my cutting speed, what is my cutting speed, what is my feed, what is my depth of cut, what are the cutting fluids that I am going to use, and how the my whole cutting machine looks like. Okay, what are the characteristics, what how I am basically holding my tool. So using a shank I'm holding, or using a 2-point pillar I'm holding. So it depends how I am gripping the material also. So depending on these processing conditions, these processing conditions basically affect, what does it affect? It affects the type of chips produced. So whether the chips are continuous, or the chips are very, very small, 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 or the chips are serrated, they have got some segments in between them. Okay. Then the force which is dissipated, the temperature rise. So these things control how much temperature is going to increase. The tool wear, what is the life of my tool, all of these variables are going to independent variables. These are independent variables. Okay, they are going to control these dependent variables. These are dependent variables, dv. Okay, so my surface finish, my temperature, the type of chips produced, all depends on these independence variable that I can control. So what are the factors which influences machining operations? Okay, cutting speed, depth of cut, feed, cutting fluids. They basically affect the force, the power, temperature rise, tool life, type of chip produced. Then what is the tool angle? How does it affect the cutting operation? Tool angles affect the influence of chip flow, direction, okay, resistance to tool wear, and chipping. So these are some things which basically affect our cutting operation or cutting process. Now let's take a look at the symbols and the geometry of our cutting tool. So please study this right now. So we have got this tool. This is my tool. This is my workpiece. This green block, and this is the chip which is produced. Okay, this is the chip. As I said earlier, the upper part of the face is called rake face. So the upper part of the tool face is called rake face, and the lower part of the tool is called flank. Okay. Now, as you can see, the distance or the angle between the tool flank face and the workpiece is called relief or clearance angle. The angle which is perpendicular from the workpiece to the rake face is called alpha, and this is the rake angle. Now the chip is produced at a certain angle, and that angle is called shear angle phi. Phi is the shear angle, which is the angle between the horizontal plane and the chip direction. Now the distance from the top surface to the cut where the tool is producing cut is called T naught. This is the depth of cut, DOC or T naught. The chip has a thickness. The chip produced has a thickness. This is denoted by TC, thickness of the chip. Okay, and you can see a lot of planes are produced, shear planes. These are small shear planes. So shearing process occurs, and basically shear planes are produced. So these are a lot of shear planes which are present. Lower side is shiny surface, okay, and the upper side of the chip is rough surface. So just keep these in your mind, and then we move to the next slide. So the tool in a cutting operation has a rake angle, okay. This is my 90-degree angle from the workpiece, and the angle between the tool rake and the 90-degree angle is called alpha. Alpha is the rake angle, okay. Rake angle determines the direction that the chip flows. So rake angle alpha defines the direction of chip flow. Then we have clearance angle, okay. This angle between the flank, okay, is and the workpiece is called clearance angle. Clearance angle provides basically provides small clearance between the tool flank and the newly generated work surface. So this is the newly generated work surface. If you can see this one, freshly cut material. This part has been cut already. Shearing takes place in a shear zone. So this is the shear zone. Okay, shearing takes place here. Usually along a well-defined plane referred to as shear plane at an angle phi, and this angle is called phi. Okay, this is called shear plane angle. Very, very important. Phi is shear plane angle. Okay, so the tool has a basically penetrated into the workpiece, and this is called T naught. T naught is the depth of cut, and then my chip has its own thickness called TC. TC is the thickness of the chip which is produced. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. So as the chip is formed, as slowly the chip is formed and it curls up, okay, along the shear plane, its thickness increases from T0 to TC. Okay, so from T0 to TC, the thickness of the chip increases, and this is called chip thickness ratio. Chip thickness ratio R is basically the ratio of T0 to TC. Okay, so where R is the chip thickness ratio. So R is the chip thickness ratio. Chip ratio will always be less than 1.0. Okay, because TC, thickness of the chip, is always greater than the initial depth of cut thickness. That is why this ratio R is always less than 1. Is always less than 1. Remember that. So this is chip thickness ratio. Let's move to the next slide. Shear plane angle. What is the formula for shear plane angle? Okay, shear plane angle is tan phi. To calculate the shear plane angle, tan phi is equals to R, which is the chip thickness ratio, R cos alpha. Alpha is the rake angle, whole divided by 1 minus R sine alpha. So this is shear plane angle. Let's move to the next slide. Now, if you want to visualize how shearing occurred in very small planes, okay? Shearing occurred in very small planes, okay? If we can divide that, then shearing occurred in very small planes. And using that, if you see this triangle, this is the zoom triangle. They zoomed it like this, okay? This is the zoom triangle. As you can see, this is the phi. You can see this is the phi, okay? Phi angle. This is the rake angle, okay, alpha. And using triangular laws, they calculated this is phi minus alpha. So using all of these, what we call equations, they came up with shear plane angle tan phi is equals to r cos alpha whole divided by 1 minus r sin alpha. And shear strain, because shear stress is produced, so shear strain is also produced. So shear strain, which is divided by gamma. So gamma is equals to tangent of phi minus alpha. I don't want to go into the derivation of this. It will take a lot of time to understand. It is complex for you guys. So tangent phi minus alpha whole divided by cot alpha. Okay. Just to see, this shear strain is equals to AC. Okay. This is the longitudinal dimension AC whole divided by BD. This is BD. Okay. Now AC can be divided into AD and DC. So AD plus DC whole divided by BD. Now AD over BD is basically cot phi, and DC over BD is tan phi minus alpha. So you guys don't need to go into this detail. Just go for the formula which I've written on the whiteboard. Okay. No need to go into this derivation and stuff. So you just guys need to have the concept that due to the tool movement, shear planes are produced. These shear planes have a shear angle. Okay, they have a shear angle with the workpiece. These shear planes have shear strain, and these shear strain have shear stress. Okay, so that's it. So let us do one numerical based on the formulas that we have seen already. So in a machine on operation that approximates orthogonal cutting, the cutting tool has a rake angle of 10 degrees. So given that, some students did not put given that in the exam, so I could not give them the numbers for this. Some students directly put the values and start solving, and they made a mistake, but they did not put the formulas and given that, so I could not give them the numbers. Try to put given that and formulas. Those students who did given that and formulas in the numerical, I gave them 10 out of 7. Out of 10, I give them 7 marks. Whether calculation wrong or right doesn't matter. So my recommendation is for the final exam, be aware of that. So given that alpha rake angle is 10 degrees positive, the chip thickness before the cut T naught is equals to 0.50, and the chip thickness after the cut TC, which is the chip thickness, is equals to 1.125 millimeter. Calculate the shear plane angle phi. Phi is required to be calculated. And the shear strain in the operation. And shear strain gamma is required to be calculated. So the formula is R is equals to T naught over TC. And tangent phi is equals to R cos alpha whole divided by 1 minus sine R sin alpha, and gamma is equals to tangent phi minus alpha plus cot phi. So thickness ratio, let's calculate thickness ratio. Solution R is equals to T naught whole divided by TC. So 0.50 divided by 1.125 is equals to 0.444. If my calculation is wrong, let me know. This is the chip thickness ratio. Now tangent phi is equals to 0.444 multiplied by sine 10 degree whole divided by 1 minus 0.444 into sorry, this is r cos phi, right? Cos phi is 1 sine 10 degrees. So tangent phi is equals to 0.444 multiplied by cos 10 equals to divided by 1 minus 0.444 multiplied by sine 10 is equals to. So the answer is 0.4742. So phi is equals to tangent inverse shift 10. Answer equals to 25 degrees. 25.374 degrees. This is phi. Gamma is equals to tangent 25.374 minus 10 plus cot. Where is cot? Shift 10 no plus. I will do inverse of 10. Okay, so 1 divided by 10. What is this? 25.374. What is gamma coming? 2.38? Or did I put cot wrong? I cannot find cot in the formula exam. In the calculator. Where is cot?
Sir, actually, cot is
Yeah,
1 over tangent.
1 over tangent, right? Okay. So my answer is correct, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, good. But in calculator, there should be cot. I don't know. This one doesn't have. Should be, I guess. So this is the answer, guys. Okay, I hope you guys got the same answer. Sorry for my handwriting. Okay. So let's move to the next slide. Yeah. So okay, this is correct. This is correct. And this is correct. Wow, very good. For the first time, I did a correct numerical. Okay. Now that we know what is shear plane angle, what is shear strain, now we need to see how and what kind of and what types of chips are produced. So mainly there are 4 main categories of chips which are produced. Number 1 is discontinuous chip, number 2 is continuous chip, number 3 is built up edge kind of chip, and number 4 is serrated chip. Okay. So what are the characteristics of these kind of chips? It is very important to know what type of material produces what type of chip. So let's take a look at discontinuous chip. Discontinuous chip is basically produced for brittle materials, those materials which do not undergo plastic deformation. When the material cannot go plastic deformation, it is not plastic, not elastic, so it cannot basically move freely. So what happens, it moves, breaks, moves, breaks, moves, breaks, something like this happens. So that is why discontinuous chip are produced for brittle materials. So and you can see that it is producing irregular texture. The texture is irregular. Okay. Now high tool chip friction and large feed and depth of cut also produces discontinuous chip. if my depth of cut, you see this depth of cut so high until here. This is a very high depth of cut. So if it is very large, then this kind of chip is produced. This is not a desirable type of chip to be produced. Now let's move to continuous chip. Okay, this is an example, perfect example of continuous chip. There is no break in between. Okay, continuous chip is produced for ductile materials because they have the ability to go under plastic and elastic deformation continuously. So they can continuously move and deform and move and deform and move and deform. So that is in this case, when ductile materials are used, even they are cut at high speed with relatively small feed, then continuous chip is produced. You saw in the video of turning also that the curly continuous chip was produced in the video. That is this kind of chip. Now these kind of chips produces smooth surface finish, so they are desirable. Smooth surface finish. Remember, you have this calculator, the surface finish is very nice, very smooth. Your smartphones have got very nice surface finish. The first thing when you touch something, is you feel the surface. The surface finish is very good. So that is why for everybody, for customers' need for a product, the surface finish should be very good. It means your chip should be continuous when you're producing something. So all customers look at, oh, how good the feeling is, I want to buy this product. Or it is brushed aluminum, wow, brushed aluminum is so good. So whenever you look at surface finish, you are attracted to it. It means that a lot of careful machining was done on the surface. You like the surface because it was manufactured very sensibly and it carefully manufactured. Okay, so anything which is carefully manufactured has good surface finish. It means they control the stress, they control the strain, they control the shear plane angle very carefully. When you do this, then the product will be very nice and it is easy to sell. So these things basically matter, these types of chip formation matter for your production and manufacturing process. So continuous chip is always recommended. However, long continuous chip can cause problems. They can get stuck in the tool and workpiece. If the chip is very, very long, then it can stuck somewhere. So to prevent this, we use chip breakers. So later on, we will see how the chip breakers work. So we discussed discontinuous chip, diagram A, and we discussed continuous chip, diagram B. Now let's move to built up edge, BUE. Built up edge is B, built up UE, edge, built up edge. Okay, what happens as between the tool and the chip, there is this space. Okay, and at this space, what happens? The material accumulates. At the space, material gets stuck / it accumulates, gather. When the material gather and accumulates, then it causes the problems for tool to move forward. So when it causes problems for tools to move forward, then the surface finish is very bad. Okay, so it causes hindrance in machining or cutting operation. So just have a look. So continuous chip with built-up edge, when machining ductile material at low or to medium cutting speed, BUE consists of layers of material to form the workpiece that are gradually deposited on the tool. So if you see on this tool area, it is deposited almost on the tool between the chip and the tool. BUE then becomes unstable and eventually breaks up. Later on, this breaks up like clumps. You can see these clumps actually, okay? BUE can reduce the life of the tool. Yeah, one very important thing, life of the tool reduced. Okay, the life of the tool is reduced because it has hindrance in moving forward. So cannot move, the edge becomes blunt. BUE can reduce the life of the cutting tool. BUE can be reduced by decreasing the depth of cut. So my depth of cut should be reduced. Okay. I should reduce the depth of cut. Increase the rake angle means this angle I need to increase. Alpha I need to increase, and use sharp tools and use effective cutting fluid. So I should put effective cooling, or lubrication. Cutting fluid I should put is maybe coolant, and another one may be lubricant. If I'm going to use these two, then I can prevent BUE formation. Prevent this. So let's move to the next slide. So basic type is number 2. Number 4 is the serrated chip. Sorry. So D is serrated chip. You can see it has got some different zones. Zone 1, zone 2. They are separated out chips. Okay. These are separated out chips. These are different zones. Okay. When we use very hard materials, okay, serrated, hard, brittle, or difficult to cut materials like titanium, okay, like nickel based superalloy, then these kind of situation occur. Okay, and this also occurs when you use very high speed. When very high speed, then vibration occurs, and due to vibration these zones are created: high shear zone, low shear zone, and causes fracture later on in the chip. So this is not recommended. So if you want to microscopically visualize, okay, then here is number A. Number A is continuous chip with narrow, straight primary shear zone. You can see very small planes. These are shear zones. Okay. Number B is also continuous, but this is one shear zone, and there is one shear zone in this area also. This is also a type of continuous chip. Then number C, built up edge. You can see this part, built up edge. This part is microscopically, if you see, this is a real tool image, okay, real tool workpiece image. And you can see this workpiece has chip. This is the chip, okay. And on the corner, we have got this built up edge, this part. Then you move to C, is built up edge. D is segmented. Just now we saw segmented, and number E is discontinuous chip. So here you can see different shear zone number 1, then shear zone number 2, and then discontinuous means it is broken already here, this part broken. And it is also kind of a serrated, but it is moving towards breaking. So here also it is almost about to break. So these are microscopic images of different types of chips that are produced. So in order to basically, if my chip is very long, then what happens? It can entangle between the tool and the workpiece and can produce vibration, or can basically produce defective product. So to cut this very long chip, what we use is chip breaker. Chip breaker can be installed on the tool. So if this is my tool, okay, I can install a chip breaker here, a very small part, okay. And as the chip moves, it strikes and it is broken into small pieces. So as the chip basically strikes this chip breaker, okay, it is deflected, and then later on it breaks. So it can be clamped onto the tool, the chip breaker. In turning machine, the chip breaker is not used. The tool is like this itself. The tool is like this in turning process. So the chip breaker is due to the geometry of the tool. So in turning process, the tool is like this, and chip breaking is due to the geometry of the tool. So this is a typical turning operation. Here you can see different types of chips produced. You can see continuous chips which are produced, or you can discontinuous chip is produced. Okay. So if you see, due to the geometry, if I have this geometry, then what happens? First, it helps in the production of chips, and later on it is broken away. So in part A, tightly curled chip is produced. In part B, the chip hits the workpiece and breaks. And then in part C, continuous chips is moving away from the workpiece. In part C, the chip hits the tool shank and breaks off. So these are different scenarios for chip breaking of cutting tool for turning operation. Now let us take a look at the forces which act on the cutting tool. So there are two types of major forces which are acting. One is force acting on the chips. So on the chip we have force acting. Okay, this is denoted by Fs, shear force due to the shear plane angle, and the normal force which is normal to the shear force. And number two, we have force acting on the tool. So this is the tool. Okay, and on this tool also there are force which are acting. Okay. Now the friction force, let's talk about force acting on the chip first. Okay, on the chip, and this is the chip. Okay, on the chip we have friction force, and no, so friction force F and the normal to the friction force N. This is on the tool actually. Friction force is on the tool. A normal force to the friction is on the tool, and on the chip we have shear force Fs, and the normal force, which is the perpendicular force to the shearing force, which is Fn. Now the addition of F and N results in R. Okay, so if I'm going to add these vectors, friction force and the normal force vectors, if I'm going to add them, I get the resultant force, which is R. Okay, for the tool. And if I add vector Fs and Fn, if I add this vector shear force and normal to the shear force Fn, then I get a vector which is resultant force R dash. Okay. Now the direction of R and R dash, the direction of R and R dash are opposite, but in the same plane. So this R and this R dash are collinear, means they are in the same plane. Here if you look, R dash must be equal in magnitude to R. So R dash, so R is equals to R dash, or R dash is equals to R. R dash must be opposite in the direction of R, so they are maybe in the direction opposite, so minus. And R dash must be collinear, means they are in the same line, actually not the plane, they are in the same line. So this is basically R, and this is basically R dash. Now, what is the formula for coefficient of friction? So because on the tool, we have friction force Ff. Okay, friction force Ff can be calculated by friction coefficient formula. F mu is equals to friction force Ff whole divided by the normal force. This is the formula for mu, or coefficient of friction. Okay, and the angle, friction angle, is equals to mu. This is equals to tangent beta. Okay, so if you want to visualize what is beta, we go back, and you can see the distance, okay, between this friction force, the angle between the friction force, okay, and then we've got the angle of normal force Fn. Okay, so the angle between the normal force and the resultant is called beta, and this is called friction angle. Okay, let's move forward. Refer to the figure previously. Now shear stress acts along the shear plane. Okay. So as I said earlier, this is my tool. On my tool, we have friction force F, and we have normal force N. Then we've got the resultant force R, and the distance between the resultant force, sorry, the angle between the resultant force and normal force is called beta. Okay, so friction force can be calculated using friction coefficient formula. This is for the tool. Let's move to the chip. When we move to the chip, okay, then we have shear planes are generated. When shear plane is generated, then shear force is generated. This is Fs. Then normal to the shear force is N. Okay, this is called Fn. And then we've got the resultant of shear force. This is called R dash. Okay, so to calculate shear force, we have the formula Fs is equals to, sorry, S is equals to Fs over As. Okay, where S is the shear stress of material. Okay, so using shear stress of material, we can calculate the Fs. We can calculate. And the area AS is equals to T naught multiplied by W whole divided by sine phi, where W is the width. Okay, T naught is the depth of cut and phi is the phi is the shear plane angle. Okay, if I go back, I will show you the width of the cut, where it is. You can see this is the width, W. This is W. Okay, this is phi. Okay, this is T naught. We move back. I will show you once again. Where is W? Yeah, here you can see this is W. From here to here, this is W, the width. So the shear plane area will be W multiplied by T naught whole divided by sine phi, because it makes an angle. So these are some of the formulas, okay, for you guys to learn. So we covered this slide. This is the same slide, I guess. Friction force and mu is equals to tan beta. Okay. We already have gone through this. Shear stress equals to shear force over shear area. Shear area is equals to T naught W over sine phi. So as we know, there are force acting on the tool and force acting on the chip. There is one more thing. There is one more force which is acting on the tool, okay, which is the cutting force, Fc, and Ft, thrust force. These forces can be measured by installing a device called dynamometer. So to get this force, Fc, cutting force, and Ft, thrust force, we install a device called dynamometer. So cutting force, when I want to put some cutting force on something, I need to apply power. So the power that I will apply will increase the cutting force, and when the cutting force increases, then the material removal rate increases. Okay, so different materials have different power requirements. So these power requirements are given in this table. Okay, approximate energy requirement in cutting operations. Okay, it means soft material easy to cut, means less amount of power required. So when a material is very soft, easy to remove the material, then less amount of power is required to remove the material. When a material is very hard, then the cutting force required is high, When the cutting force required is high, then the energy and power requirement are also very high. So if you look at aluminum, the power to remove aluminum, sorry, to do machining of aluminum is maximum 1.1 watt second per millimeter cube. Whereas for cast iron, I need 5 times more power. So for aluminum, maximum specific energy is 1.1, but for cast iron, I need to apply 5.5. This is 5 times. So if I'm cutting aluminum very easy, if I'm cutting cast iron, I need to apply 5 times more energy than aluminum. Copper, little bit soft in the middle, so 3.3. High temperature alloy, 8.5, quite high. Nickel alloy is 6.8, very, very difficult. That is why for nickel alloys, serrated chips are formed because they are very, very hard and a lot of energy is required. For titanium alloys also, serrated chips are formed. And steel, you can see how difficult steel is, 9.3, almost 10 times, 9 times higher. So these are the specific energies which are required for cutting operation of different materials. So this is the last slide now for today. It's a very important slide. Some portion of it will come in the exam, 100%. Okay, this slide is very, very important. Temperature distribution. So remember in the previous video, I showed you that when the cutting tool is doing the cutting operation, the cutting tool will become red hot. What does it mean, red hot? Red hot means that the temperature increase and the material becomes red hot. When metals temperature increase, they glow and they becomes red hot. So during cutting operation, the temperature increases for all tools. How much the temperature increases, it depends. If my cooling is very good, then the temperature will not increase too much. If my cooling is not adequate, then the temperature will increase will be very high. If my depth of cut is very high, then I need to apply a lot of power and a lot of shearing will happen. When the shearing happens, then a lot of temperature increases. So it depends on the depth of cut also. Then it can depend on the cutting speed also. If I'm cutting very, very fast, then the temperature will also increase very quickly. So here you can see in the figure that a chip is produced. This is the workpiece. It is very cool. The workpiece temperature gradients, these are temperature gradients, okay? The temperature gradients are very cool. The workpiece 30 degrees centigrade, normal temperature. But at near surface, the workpiece maximum temperature 130. Okay, still can touch maybe. Still maybe for some amount of time can touch. But you can see the chip. After you are doing the cutting operation, chips is produced. These chips have a lot of temperature. You can see chip maximum temperature 600 degrees centigrade. That's quite a lot. But you should see the tool temperature. The tool temperature is the highest, starting from 500 degrees centigrade, because tool is the thing which is doing the cutting operation. So tool is under a lot of stress. Tool has to shear the material. Tool has to remove the material. Tool has to break the chip also. So tool is under a lot of stress. That is why the tool has cutting force and the thrust force. So this tool, if you can see or if you can observe, in the middle we have the highest temperature gradient in the middle of the tool, 700 degrees centigrade. T highest, TH, 700 degrees centigrade is in the middle of the tool, because here the shearing process started at this point. But at the middle, the tool has already done a lot of efforts to remove the workpiece. So at this point, as this point moves here, okay, the temperature is highest, 700 degrees centigrade. And that particular temperature pattern, these patterns, these gradients, these temperature gradients are depending on several factors such as material properties, cutting conditions, type of cutting fluid, etc. This slide is very, very important. Remember this. Very, very important for you guys. Okay. So there is no numerical for cutting force. It was only for a concept only that there are two types of force. One cutting force on the. There are two types of forces. One is the force on the chip, and one is force on the tool. Force on the chip can be due to the friction force and the shear force. Force on the tool is usually due to the cutting force and the thrust force. So this was only the concept for forces for you guys. In the next class, we are going to start our new chapter, turning operation, under the subtopic of machining.